So you've got a God who, you've either got a God who wants everybody to be saved, but created a world where the many will not be saved, and he created a hell for that many to go to, and he allows them to make the horrific decision in their ignorance, or if they never heard the gospel, that the many go to hell, and God just kind of shrugs and says, I wanted you all to be saved, but you know, your free will is sovereign. I'm allowing your free will to be sovereign over my will. Or you've got a God who creates a world where all of his purposes are completely fulfilled, and he achieves exactly what he set out to achieve, which is the glory of God, the glory of the Son. So those are your two options. And the liberal-minded person, like Shawn, see, he's got an idea of what God is. He's got an idea of how he thinks God should be, and that does not include a God of wrath and judgment, justice. And so he's got to find a way. He's got to find a way to absolve God of any responsibility for the terrible ramifications of this world. And this is the problem with creating a God in your own image instead of and leaning to your own understanding rather than accept what the Bible actually says about God. And this is why I believe an error stacks upon error in this line of thinking, of creating a God in your own image of how you think God is and ought to be. And error stacks upon error. And this is why I believe that Shawn one Sunday in his church suggested and asked us to consider the possibility that maybe God isn't omniscient and or omnipotent. See, he has to go there because if God is omniscient, that means that God knew that the world he created would result in a vast number of souls ending up in hell, and Shawn's image of God can't have that. He can't have that. So now he's got to suggest, well, maybe God isn't omniscient. Maybe he just he didn't elaborate, but he threw it out there, which was like a punch in the gut. Both me and my wife looked at each other like, what, did he just say that? And this was months ago, but that's what happens when you create a God in your own image, and you come across the hard passages of the Bible that contradict that created image, and so now you've got to go into philosophy, and you've got to try to figure out a way to get God off the hook. And this is how you end up with also like William Lane Craig. This is how you end up with the philosophy of Molinism, created by the Jesuit Molina, to suggest that this was, well, I won't go into that, but this is also why. So when you've created an image of God according to your idea of what love is, a sentimental, human, fallen idea of love, sentimental, emotional love, romantic love, then you've also got the problem of hell. How does a loving God create an eternal hell? And this is the argument that the atheists come up with. What kind of loving God would punish people for eternity? And so the following week, Shawn brought out his idea suggesting that hell is not eternal and that everybody gets saved. And in any book, that's called universalism. He even said that purgatory, something like purgatory may be what happens, and so that you go to a timeout, you go to a bad punishment for a while, but eventually hell gives up her dead. And that caused a bit of a stir in the congregation. Yeah. And I was most concerned because a good portion of that congregation are ex-Mormons. And I'm thinking, here come these Mormons that have come out of Mormonism, and they're being told that the Christian view, according to Shawn, is that perhaps God is not omniscient, not omnipotent. I'm just ponder it. I mean, that's what he said. Just throwing it out there. Think about it. And that there is no literal eternal hell. There's something more like a purgatory, or as the Mormons would say, a spirit prison. And I'm thinking, these people are going to be very confused because they just left Mormonism where these things were taught. They were taught that God is a man who is not omnipotent. He has to work with matter. He didn't create matter. He organizes matter. He was a man who was fallen once and then evolved to godhood. And that's not the Christian God that you're teaching, Shawn. And at what point does this stop becoming Christianity? And the irony is that a few months before, Shawn went on his TV show that was on cable television and said he was going to start turning his guns on Christian churches. He was going to leave attacking Mormonism and start attacking false Christian churches, according to what his idea of a proper Christian church should be. And I'm thinking, because he said that he was concerned that Mormons coming out of Mormonism would enter a church that wasn't correct, that wasn't teaching proper doctrine. So he was going to set all the churches in the city straight, the ones that were wrong according to him. And I agree with a lot of his criticisms about phony baloney Christian churches. There are certainly a lot of those. But here are these ex-Mormons sitting in the congregation being told that maybe God is not omniscient, not omnipotent, that hell maybe isn't eternal, that you can lose your salvation if you don't work hard enough. He doesn't put it like that, but he says that if you need to love in the right way, and this is similar to what N.T. Wright and the Catholic Church teaches, is yeah, you're saved, but you got to keep doing stuff. You got to stay in the vine, or you might lose your salvation. And all of this derives from the idea that he's not comfortable with the biblical God. And I haven't brought it up, mentioned him by name for months, even though I've been very concerned about it. And I'm concerned about his congregation, because I think a lot of them think it's neat to be in his church because he was on TV and he's kind of a celebrity. And he's a likable guy in a lot of ways. I mean, we liked him. I like him. He's got charisma, and he's done a lot of good in helping people get out of Mormonism. But I think these new doctrines that he's starting to spin are dangerous. And I think, at what point do you need to just draw a line and call someone out and saying, okay, you're no longer teaching biblical Christianity? And that is not a comfortable or fun thing to do. And I put myself in the position of being attacked and ostracized by a lot of those people that we learned to love as fellow believers, and still do. but I'll tell you, he has always made the claim that, prove me wrong, come show me where I'm wrong. Well, I've tried calling his show twice. Both times he's shouted me down and ended up hanging up on me, calling me an idiot one time. And I've never done anything against him or his family. We've done nothing but support them during the time that I felt like he was teaching biblical Christianity. And all we left at the point when he started intimating universalism. But we haven't, we just went our separate way. We're going to be a part of that, but I am concerned for the people that do still reside with him and gloss over those things. And he pulled back once he saw that it was causing a bit of a stir and people were starting to leave, and we weren't the only ones that walked out at that point. He backed off, and he's not being as public with his ideas, his beliefs, but he hasn't repented of them. He hasn't changed his mind. I mean, you can tell from when I called his program, he's vociferously supporting his own notions, and I'll tell you, I was shaken up when I called. I did not expect that kind of vitriol. I took him at his word that he wanted to discuss these things and have a conversation, and I feel like I was respectful. I mean, I was making my case, but I don't feel like I was disrespectful or antagonistic. But I certainly felt that from him, and it just kind of surprised me. And I was shaken up, and I felt grieved. I felt the truth divides, as it should.
To be a righteous man.